Charles Morgan is a tech founder, MIT graduate, and now the author of the book Don't Punk Out. After building his first startup in Silicon Valley and experiencing the cutthroat and psychopathic behavior of many in the startup world, he is now focused on the study of business PTSD and how neuroscience is showing that the damage to your brain experienced through the betrayal in business, similar to personal relationships, short circuits your amygdala and causes neurotic reactions that are not good for anyone in your life. He is now on a mission through his work, book, and music to educate others of the benefits of neuroplastic workouts, particularly targeting Fortune 500 CEOs to create a new generation of compassionate leadership. He is also collaborating with Snoop Dogg on his sonic acupuncture music. This episode is for anyone looking to understand how to get into a peak flow state to achieve breakthroughs in your work, and those wishing to understand how certain breathwork techniques will literally rewire your mind. Enjoy this one, guys. Do you want to do any sort of breathwork first or anything? Or?
Actually, yeah. We can do, well, we can start with the very basic, with the 8 pillars of joy, breathing, just to set the mood in. You know, like we hit some rain on the way in. Yeah. You know, you might be feeling like, oh my gosh, I wish it wasn't so wet, right? But there's these 8 pillars of joy from Buddhism, and the first one is the joy of changing your perspective. Okay. Right. And I find that this is, I think, of all the practices that I've done, the training the muscle memory, so that when I take a deep breath, my brain thinks the joy of changing my perspective, just because I've done this particular breathing pattern so often, right? Okay. And so what we're going to do is long, slow, deep breath in. So like sit up, back straight, chin slightly tucked, right? Okay. In through the nose, long, slow, deep. And as we're breathing, we're going to put all of our mind's attention just on the words, the joy of changing my perspective, right? And so you're breathing in, long, slow, deep. Letting the words rumble, the joy of changing my perspective. How you feel?
Good.
Yeah?
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Way to kick
My
off.
pleasure. Absolutely. Any physical sensations? Like what were you, the movement of the rib cage, you know, like how did that all feel?
Felt unfamiliar. Felt unfamiliar opening up at the top. And that little bit more, it felt great, and I could really feel the energy. I could feel it moving up, kind of up my spine.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's good.
Up the spine is a perfect observation. That's what the yogis call the Kundalini rising.
Yeah.
You know, people throw this word around a lot, like Kundalini awakening, Kundalini this, Kundalini that. But the specific thing that the old yogis talk about is this the creative energy, right? This. Shiva, right? Lord Shiva, according to the theology, right? The cosmology. Like Shiva taught the people yoga 60,000 years ago so that they just like would chill the fuck out. Right? Can I curse on the show?
Yeah, you can say whatever the hell you like.
And, but it was Shiva, Shiva's the god of destruction, right? So it's like, destroying. And Shiva has this super banging wife. Her name is Shakti, right? Shakti is the creator, right? So after Shiva destroys, Shakti creates. And when Shiva comes to destroy things sort of without intention, right? It's like mindlessly destroying things. They call him Shava. It's in the term Shavasana, right? As the yoga, like the corpse pose, right? Literally, an unintentional destruction is the work of a corpse, zombies, right? And that's when Shakti takes the form of Kali. Kali is very common, especially on this island. You got a lot of witches rolling around saying like, oh, I've got this Kali energy, right? Kali is always depicted like this, like she's like got swords and she's like black demon face, and she's always depicted stepping on the neck of Shiva, right? Being like, wake the fuck up, dude. Yeah. Wake up. Stop destroying things unintentionally. Destroy things productively, right? Destroy things that need to be destroyed, such as this moment, right? The only way the next moment can arise is if we destroy this moment. Right, and that is sort of the nervous system training, the philosophy underneath the breath. Right, is that we're waking up, and the yogis believe that in terms of like the physiology, that Kundalini Shakti lives at the base of the spine. Right, that root lock, that the muscle between where you pee and you poo, the gooch, the gooch. Perineum. Yeah. Right, she lives just above the gooch. Right, and so that those 3 locks that we did by engaging the root lock, squeezing the belly button, right? Engaging the root lock is like, wake up, Shakti. Yeah. Wake up, Shakti. Squeezing the belly button, the Uddiyana Bandha, right? Says like, come up this direction. And then putting the tip of the tongue to the top of the mouth, tucking the chin, that says come all the way up. And that shoots the Shakti energy straight into the what they call the 10th gate, right? So like through the brain. And this is what the yogis believed was the physiological basis of creative inspiration, which is unique from a lot of the other religions and ancient mythologies and philosophies where they believe that, inspiration, like in the Greeks, they said that, like the divine inspiration that was given to us from Prometheus, right? In the Christian and Jewish and most like the monotheistic religions, they talk about like, divine inspiration can come from God, right?
Yeah.
But the yogis believe that through this practice, we can control and induce the release of creative inspiration. And I think that this is, like this is a superpower.
Yeah.
Right? Is for anybody that's in a creative field, anybody that's trying to do something meaningful with their lives, anything that's do something big, right? Anyone that's trying to express, right? Like, what is your Sat Nam? Show me. Does it slap?
So we said, I love that we're here. This is absolutely where I want to be. Amazing. Thank you so much for guiding us through that. What did we say at the end? We said Sat,
Nam.
Nam. And we inhaled, Sat, and then we said Nam.
Exhale.
Exhale. So something I've come across recently is this idea of creative energy. The word Allah, God, Krishna, Creator, it all has this in. So as we just did then, I noticed, the
Indeed.
is present.
Yeah.
And it's something I've started doing into my morning and evening practices is the and the There's so much we could go into.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, we got time.
What is that then? So you said it's that creative energy. What are we doing there? What are we doing when we're through the breath work and then we're building this kind of creative energy and through the the Sat Nam? What is that? What is that?
Well, man, if you ask 100 people, you're going to get 100 different answers.
Yeah.
But in terms of my research, my experience with this practice, when I was completely not working on creative things, like I was a scientist in university. I studied electrical engineering and material science. I was working on solar cells and batteries. You could say that it's creative, but mostly it's just like information and like engineering, right? Like there is creativity in engineering, no doubt. But then, when I was working on my career and I was getting into software and I was starting software companies and I was dealing with venture capitalists and dealing with employees and just like just everyone always at you for something, like show me the numbers, like where's my salary, like negotiating this clause in the contract, right? It's very not, I guess, like artistic, right? It's not, I'm not painting, I'm not making music, I'm not whatever. But I discovered this yoga, right? And I discovered the yoga kind of, I think the way that a lot of people discover yoga in the Western world is like, I was an athlete in college. I played football. And after university, I was trying to figure out what to do with my post-athlete body. And looking at all the sports that old people play, tennis people always have injuries. Bodybuilders always have injuries. Like every sport has injuries, except these yogis seem to be living a very long time with a very high quality of life, great mobility. So I was like, let me get into this. And this breathing practice that we talk about stems from what they call Kundalini yoga, and Kundalini being the serpent energy. What we talked about, Kundalini Shakti, right? So Kundalini is the serpent, Shakti is the wife of Shiva. She's kind of like the same thing, right? Shakti, right? The is there, right? And I think that now that I have reawakened the musical side of me, having done this practice so deeply, like chased down some old masters that, like you run into like fake guru, like with like in this like, I guess you could say universe of yogis. The guru that, I never met this guy because he was already dead by the time I discovered the practice, but his like whole like organization, right, was alive and pumping. And in 2020, the guy was massively disgraced. There was this big like memoir that was written by one of his secretaries, like all the bad stuff, and I was just like, oh no. So is this thing real? Yeah. And the particular method of his disgrace was that he was like a baggage handler at LAX, fresh off the boat from India. But he noticed all these hippies were like willing to follow anybody with a beard and brown skin. And he had a yoga textbook from a super legit yogi that he brought over with him. And he went to the LA County Public Library, photocopied the pictures, and wrote his own text, got himself a handful of students, and that turned into one of the biggest schools of yoga that's still operational today. Oh, wow. Right? And this guy, he was like a religious studies PhD, like tracked this all down, you know, like after the guru was like disgraced by this this memoir from one of his secretaries, then this guy was like, hold up. But this yoga actually changed my life. And this yoga is actually changing other people's lives. So what is the real source, right? And the real source is this guy named Swami Dhirendra Brahmachari, who was like this big time yogi back in the day. He's long dead. I think he died in like the 90s or 80s. But he had this big school of, big network of yoga schools in India. He was the prime minister's yogi. He was the yogi of the Gandhi family. He was like a big deal, right? And you know, I'm kind of getting off topic, but I'm telling that story just to say that, like, you know, everybody that knows anything about this spiritual practice is only learning someone else's lie. Right? And so when you ask me, like, what is the right? I don't know. Right? But in my, you know, pursuit of the last living student of Swami Dhirendra Brahmachari, who I found and managed to study with, he has a very sophisticated Western and Eastern understanding of this whole phenomenon. And through following his prescription, I have achieved some incredible, like I can only call them meditation-induced hallucinations. Yeah. You know, like you've taken, you know, people take acid, people take mushrooms, people take MDMA, you know, these kind of like psychedelic, oh my God, love, blah, blah, blah. But like nothing hit me harder than my first, what's called a jhana, right, in the yoga literature, right? These heightened psychic states, not enlightenment, it's not nirvana. And we'll get into like the mistranslation of enlightenment later, but these heightened psychic states, when you move through level 1, there's 8 of them, right? Okay. And the 8th one being samadhi, which is known as sort of the deep yogic sleep. It's like you're just completely in this like space. There's no time, there's no space, there's no body, there's no you. There's the complete non-separation with the universe, right? And in these states, you hear these sounds. Right? And these state, you know, when you come back down, everybody that comes back down is like, fuck. Let me write a book about what I just saw, right? Yeah. Let me write a song about what I just saw, because like words can't, there's the sound. And then in the sound, there is like this constellation of everything that ever was. Like all of your life, all of your future, all of your past lives, all of your timelines. And like if you're meditating and you haven't hit a jhana, like it's like having sex without an orgasm. Really, it's like it's pleasurable. Sure, you might relax, you might level out your cortisol levels, but the thing here is not like, the goal here is not to chill out. The goal here is that through a reproducible method and some very minimal training of your physical body, you can be God. You can see it, you can be it, you could feel it, you are it, and then you create. And then you create from that space, right? And, you know, like whenever I do, you know, I guess not this sort of single sequence, but when I do sit down for about an hour and I get myself into one of these jhanas, and by now I've gotten to the point that if I actually do sit down and give myself an hour and a half, I can get to one of the lower level jhanas. I'm not in full samadhi, like, you know, like, oh my God, like walking on clouds type thing. Well, I guess in samadhi, you wouldn't be walking because you don't have feet. There wouldn't be clouds because there's no separation, right? But you can get to these states where you have, like, you know, in the Western world calls them flow states. The Western, you know, like runner's high, right? Runner's high, the description of the physical sensations of runner's high is pretty much what these yogis call a level 1 jhana. Right? What people are talking about flow states in the business world in order to increase productivity, increase neuroplasticity. You know, these you know, the research is saying that you can increase your rate of learning by 5x. Like you're 500% more smart or smarter. Not 50% smarter, 500% smart. And they're just talking about level 1. Yeah. Like the time dilation that you experience at level 2, at level 3, at level 4, at level 5, it's exponentially more intense. And so when you say like, what is the right? It's like, it is the sound of surprise, right? At the most basic level, it's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, what a great idea. Yeah, let's do that,
Yeah.
right? But really where it comes from is hitting these truly, truly psychedelic meditative states. And we can talk about the neurochemistry of what creates that scenario for you, which is basically the main content of my book, was like piecing together. Like I experienced one of these jhanas, and it was November 2015 on a Wednesday, completely sober. I hadn't even smoked a joint that day. It was at the end of a day of work. The class was like 7 to 8:30 p.m. What the fuck? Like I walked completely unaware of what was gonna happen. I was just like just going to a yoga class, and I had gone to a couple of these Kundalini yoga classes before, and I just like it was I don't even know. I mean, objectively, hour and a half long, right? But there was one of these cannonball breaths where I just like literally blasted off out of my brain, like just like off of the planet, off of the like in space, just like out of the 3 dimensions. I was in 4th dimensional space. Like it was like, whoa, right? And like I remembered my body over there, but then like somehow I could like still hear what she was saying, and I could see my body continuing to do the practice, but like mentally I was just like exploring timelines. Like I met different versions of my wife in different timelines. I met different versions of my children. I experienced full day and night cycles. Like it was insane. It was absolutely insane. And then I remember I was like jumping, and just completely taken over by this experience. And when the gongs she started playing the gongs at the end of the class, and I could hear her calling me back to my body. I was like, no. There's so much here. There's so much here. I got to figure this out. And then all of a sudden I was in my body, and I just like woke up in this class, and I'm looking around at the other people. There's maybe like 10 people in this class, and this Guru Nishan in Chicago. And I was just looking. I was like, did you guys? What?
Yeah.
Did you guys just experience that? Because but I was still a rational participating member of society at that time.
Yeah.
My first startup had just raised our first big round. We just hired a bunch of people, and I had responsibilities. So I remember riding the subway home in Chicago, and I was just like, whoa. And I was like, I remember like writing like ferociously into my Evernote at the time, just like, oh my God, what is all this stuff, And I just had no training, I had no vocabulary, I didn't know this idea of the jhanas, I didn't know this history of the cosmology of yoga. Like I was just like, my only experience with such a thing was taking acid and MDMA at the same time at a music festival when I was 22, right? Responsibly. Responsible dosages, but ultimately like it was and this trip was harder. Just this oxygen induced this trip was the hardest trip of my life, and that's when I got real serious. I was like, I need to dedicate my life to studying this and figuring this out and unlocking it, because it wasn't just fun, like it was peace. It was joy. It was so much creative energy packed into this hour and a half. And I paid $20 to go to this yoga class, but I figured if I learn how to do this, I can do this for free.
Yeah.
Like that's freedom.
Yeah.
That's freedom, right? Financial freedom is a lie, all right? There's no, it's called golden handcuffs, right? It's like we'll make the jail really nice for you. Yeah. And give you little golden pillows. You get a little golden Netflix account, right? It's not free, right? Freedom is just sitting on the floor of a shack with no windows, no air conditioning, and breathing yourself into the most joy that anyone has ever been able to describe ever. And it still doesn't hit the mark. All the books that have been written about this stuff, all the music that's been made about it, it still doesn't compare to how it feels.
Mate, that's amazing.
Man.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I know you had two. There's a question I want to ask you about when you experienced shooting off. What that was. I will come back to that. Like, who was experiencing that? You say I experienced that. Okay, what was that? I'd like to come back there and really feel out around there. I know that you had two experiences, one with yoga and one with psychedelics, where you saw a shadow. You saw a shadow, and for those watching, I'm using my phone today, not being rude. I saw a shadow. This shadow was pulling me off a timeline. The other people in my life were trying to save me, but I dragged them all down. The other experience, where you saw the shadow again, I saw my face melting from my skull as my eye socket came out. I saw the shadow again. I realized that the shadow was the hunger, it was the ambition, it was the endless loop that I would always be trapped in. And there's so much you learn about self-hatred and how that kind of manifests with relationships. I'm very, very curious. What led up to these two experiences? How did you get to these experiences? And then from these pivotal moments, how has life unfolded? How has life changed? And how have they informed decisions and everything moving forward?
Straight to the most intense question. Yeah. So I think this shadow is something that everyone on the spiritual path is contending with. It's not a unique observation that I had. And, like everyone from Carl Jung studying these and trying to put a science around it to the shamans that are working with your inner demons. Everyone is dealing with this stuff. And I guess my personal interpretation of my shadow was very much informed by my upbringing by a Chinese tiger mom. Like I really, really loved achieving. I was rewarded for being a straight A student. I was, unlike most, I think my mom really did it right. Like she didn't punish me for not getting straight A's, but she would reward me extravagantly for straight A's, right? Like it was like Christmas every time I got a report card, right? But I never got allowance, right? I never got paid for just being normal, right? But if I was extravagantly good, if I was the best, then I was extravagantly rewarded, right? And that was my like internal thought loop about approaching anything in life. Whether it was to go to a party or attend a meeting or to pursue a particular romantic partner, there was always this undercurrent of like extravagant achievement. And if that wasn't there, I was miserable. I was a slave to this hunger and, a slave for that validation, right? And this is, one of the good side of being raised by a tiger mom is that you try really hard to do your best. The bad side of the tiger mom is that, or being raised by this tiger mom is that there's almost a neuroticism about it. Like, and whenever you're behaving in a neurotic way, you're capable of doing inhuman things, right? Inhuman productivity, which is people talk about in a positive way, but inhuman things to your friends, to your employees, to, one of the main thesis of my book is about business PTSD, right? How that the neuroscience shows the damage to your brain that you experience under an acute moment of backstabbing or betrayal in a business setting. Right, the brain actually doesn't, and specifically this part of the brain called the amygdala, is the source of your fight or flight response, is the part of your brain that when you sense fear, it begins the hormonal release of cortisol. Right, so the source of cortisol is your glands, but what activates the glands is your amygdala. Right, and so when you're experiencing one of these acute events in a business setting, in a personal setting, divorce, breakup, whatever. The amygdala just gets like there's so much activity in the amygdala that is like short circuits, right? And this fight or flight response can just like, what do you do in a fight or flight? Like you kill or abandon. And these are not behaviors that are good for anybody else in your life, right? And so if you're habitually putting yourself in this environment of having your amygdala short-circuited, then you will habitually have these neurotic reactions where you're destroying people. And maybe you're not murdering someone, maybe you're not beating someone physically with your fists, but you're verbally abusive, spiritually abusive, and sometimes the person that you're abusing loves you and remembers when you were better and stays and suffers the abuse. And you're just in your shit, just like, oh my God, like, oh, this thing is happening at work and fuck you, Your partner doesn't deserve that. Your kids don't deserve that, right? But we have this kind of false mentality around it's not personal, it's just business. And because of this phrase, because of this incorrect understanding of the human biosystem, right, we have inadvertently created a world where psychopathic behavior is commonplace, where these neurotic responses are excusable, as long as you don't physically kill someone or physically assault someone, right? And this has led to, from my point of view, in my short career, I had a couple of traumatic business episodes. Like this company that I was working on, this company that I mentioned from this story, November 2015, my first jhana, right? Like in that trip, I explained kind of like the fun side of it. I didn't think you were going to ask about the shadow side, but yeah, the end of that trip, the reason why I was so upset that the gongs were hitting and I was being forced back into my body is because I had just started exploring the timeline that had the shadow. And I was like, oh, what is this thing? Yeah. What is this thing? Oh no, and that acid trip where I saw my face melting off my face in the mirror was my birthday. It was March 2016. And what was happening between November 2015 and March 2016 was my first co-founder separation. We just raised some money. We had just hired these like really big shot people. This guy that was a former private equity guy. So he was much older than us. My co-founder and I were both 25. We hired this 30-year-old private equity guy and this 34-year-old chief architect, director of engineering. And basically a coup was architected. And I was suddenly betrayed by one of my best friends, presumably due to my ineptitude as a CEO, which is probably true. I was 25. I didn't have any proper business experience. I was an engineer. I didn't study sales, marketing, management, any of these things. And given my natural inclination towards introversion, I probably did say some things that were mean or rude or stepping over people's emotions, just because I didn't have that sensitivity. I hadn't cultivated that skill. And I after all this work and after all this research, after all this knowledge, now I know I actually had a small amygdala. I actually did. Did. And I know that because I was diagnosed with ADHD as a kid. And a typical issue with ADHD, Asperger's, autism spectrum disorder is like there is a dysfunction of the amygdala region and the limbic system at large. The limbic system is sort of like, there's a lot of modules in the brain that kind of like all come up to your ability to predict pleasure and pain, your ability to predict fear, your ability to like handle these things. It's like the deepest part of your brain that all of your sensory inputs go straight into, right? Like visual information from your eyes, audible information from your ears, olfactory information from your smell, right? Taste, like all these things go straight into the limbic system. The limbic system processes it and then sends instructions to the rest of the brain. Move, activate prefrontal cortex. Think about this rationally, right? And so by the time you're actually aware that you're upset, but the part of your brain that thinks is the prefrontal cortex, this fat part in the front. And by the time the part of you that is you is aware that you're angry, it's like the prefrontal cortex is sensing the cortisol that was created by another part of the brain. And these two parts of the brain, they don't talk to each other. There's no hookup, right? There's no communication, right? And so this, when it comes to, I feel like I'm going on these like big tangents, but back to the hunger.
Yeah.
I saw it after I won that co-founder battle. The papers were, the signed separation documents were delivered at 5:30 p.m. on March 18th, 2016. I think this was a Friday. I had planned a big birthday party at my apartment in Boston, and the chief architect, he and I, like when the private equity guy and my co-founder kind of like wanted to do this thing, the chief architect and I were kind of on the other side of it. And he came over to my apartment and was like, yeah, let's celebrate. Like, we got the company, woo. And I was just like, I remember making drinks for us. And I was like, yeah, we got the company, but at what cost? Because we were, there's this guy that was my co-founder. I mean, we met the week before freshman year of university. We were friends all through college. We were friends for years. At this point, we had been friends for 7 years. And we spoke every day about the company, about life, about each other's families, about each other's girlfriends, about what we wanted to do in life and how we wanted to grow together and how, and I was just like after the things that we said to each other in this past month, I still haven't spoken to him. And I often miss him. And after all this training with compassion and forgiveness, and humility, right? We talked about the joy of humility. I see the bad things that I did to threaten our relationship that prompted his, I don't think he would use the word betrayal, but from my point of view at that time, it was an absolute betrayal of our relationship, of the thing that we built together. But I was partially the bad guy. And then I won the battle, and all the investors were super happy. They're like, we wanted you to win. We backed you, and all the customers were like, oh, well, I guess the customers didn't really know, but people don't talk about that. People don't talk about, even when it comes to soldier PTSD, nobody, maybe they talk about it in PTSD, groups, but in terms of the cultural zeitgeist around PTSD, we don't talk about winner's PTSD enough. How bad it feels to hurt another person and then be congratulated for it.
Man. So you see that and you notice that in yourself? So then the party starts. Right, so I'm having this really intense thought as we're making the drinks, and then more people start showing up. Yeah. It's a proper banger, and we're having a good time. We're like, I don't know, we're in 26 years old, right? With a bank full of cash and a bunch of cool, smart friends in a metropolitan city, and so I went to university in Boston as well, and one of my underlings, well, not underling, but we went to undergrad together. He was a few years younger than me. We played football together. They came over, and they were like, oh, we brought you a birthday present. And I was like, great, what is it? Thank you. They're like, it's acid. And I was like, what? We can't do acid right now. There's a big party happening. We're going to go crazy. Yeah. And they were like, but we've never done it before. And we want to do it with you. Yeah.
We want to do it with you. And I was like, well, maybe another time. But hold on to it. And then the party gets to a certain point where it just got a little bit, rowdy. And I was just like, yo, man, I don't want, this is a nice apartment. I don't want these, college age and slightly above to just be throwing down in on my next furniture. So I decided, you know what? Yeah, let's end the party and let's have ourselves a little acid night, right? And so we kicked everyone out except the three of us, and then we just had a grand old time, you know, and I like explained to them what they were going to experience and how long the experience was going to be. The same way that I was instructed by an older guy from our fraternity in college, it's like, you know, like how to be safe.
Yeah.
Right. Like I actually didn't know that the general population was so unsafe with drugs because my on-ramp was so like the guy that was our, you know, shaman. Right? He never called himself a shaman, but he was a double degree in what was it? Nuclear engineering and biomedical engineering at MIT. Not a double major, double degree. Like this guy was like, you know, they talk about like wizards. They talk about like fucking like magicians that go to MIT. Like I'm just like a normal, like averagely smart guy that like barely made it in. Yeah. But this guy, magician. Yeah. Right. Like he, and his main asset, of course, was his brain. Yeah. And he knew that his main asset was his brain. And he knew enough about the brain from doing, you know, biomedical engineering to do pre-med. Like he knew and cared about his brain. And he's the one that taught us freshmen, sophomores, you know, whatever, how to think about your relationship with psychedelics, how to think about your relationship with these different types of drugs, which drugs you can safely mix, in what dosages. And like, it's a very personalized experience. Like you figure out what works for you, right? Don't do things that don't work for you. Especially if you're in a party setting, if it's unsafe, you know. And it wasn't until I got into the real world and started partying with people from other places that I was like, oh my, you guys are sending yourself into psychosis, you know? But, you know, this night was very safe. It was very cool. It was very, but yeah, I just, you know, I got up after like laughing for like an hour straight. Like my face was hurting, you know. I was like, I gotta go to the bathroom, guys. Jesus, like chill, you know, chill with the jokes, you know, because they're just like, you know, like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern here, just like freaking hilarious guys. And I go to the bathroom, and you know, they always say when you're on psychedelic, don't look in the mirror, right? It's like a well-known thing, so don't look in the mirror. And I'm washing my hands, and I looked in the mirror just for a second, and I just like saw it, and I was like, you know, and it was definitely because I had just experienced this whole, you know, relationship trauma. Let's call it what it is. I lost my best friend. It's relationship trauma. In business, they talk about when you get into a partnership with someone, it's like a marriage. Yes. Right. We just got divorced. Yeah. And I lost a best friend. Right. So I'm dealing, but you know, like. Everyone's telling, my lawyer is telling me, my investors are telling me, it's not personal. It's just business. Get back to work. Yeah. It's fine. It's fine. Shrug it off. You're fine. You're fine. And I'm looking at myself and I see how far I went to protect what I thought was mine. How mean I was. It was the meanest I'd ever been in my life. Yeah. And that's when it all kind of like the constellation came to me. It's like this shadow, my personal shadow was this hunger that was fueled by achievement, this hunger that was, you know, causing me to do things that I knew were wrong, but I did them and I justified them and I got a pass from the people that were around me. And this is the seed kernel of what I talk about as business PTSD in the book. Right? And I'm 26 at this point. My first little hit, right? But when you think about the guys that have been in the game for a long time, like the S&P 500 CEOs, think about how much backstabbing and betrayal they had to go through to get into that chair, or they had to do it themselves. Right? There's a big difference between wealth creation and wealth consolidation, right? You can create $1 billion of value for the company, for the shareholders. It's a collective. Right? By the time a company becomes a unicorn, there's at least 200, 300 people involved. Right? Very rarely do you have like a less than 100-person unicorn, right? When you count the investors, the employees, the founders, the customers, everybody, like all these people, they make it like $1 billion of value. But in order for one person to end up with $1 billion, somebody in that group of 200 people has to take it from everyone else. Whether it's on legal letterhead, firing the co-founders, whether it's activist investing by private equity groups, whether it's, you know, every industry you can say is like, oh, it's a necessary part of the economy. Every industry has a few psychopaths, right? And they got that way by doing these little actions that they knew were wrong on a human level, but it's not illegal. I have a fiduciary responsibility to do this. And they hide behind these justifications. And what happens, I believed at the time was a spiritual death. But after looking at all the research and working with the neuroscientists that I've worked with and experiencing sort of in deep meditation states, like the actual kind of like the physiological nature of these emotions and how they manifest and how they feel when you activate them. It's just like every time you do one of these actions, you short circuit the amygdala, and over time, that part of the brain becomes small or dysfunctional and atrophies. The same way that if you break your arm, you put it in a cast, you get off the cast in a few months, this arm's perfectly fine. This arm is skinny as a stick. It's atrophy, right? And this is the foundational truth that has been discovered with neuroplasticity, is that through repetition, you can increase neural density of certain regions of the brain. Through the lack of repetition, through the stopping of doing certain things, you decrease blood flow to those regions of the brain to the point that they just don't even get blood flow anymore, right? And basically A plus B equals C. It's like, oh my gosh, like these guys that are sitting in these chairs, the S&P 500 CEOs, the heads of industries, I don't want to name any particular names, but like everyone that's listening to this will understand whatever industry they're in. They can think of like somebody that's at the top that behaves in a tyrannical, awful way, and it's not because they're a bad person, they are a bad person now, but they didn't start that way.
Yeah,
they didn't start that way. They just got betrayed and backstabbed and exiled by so many people on the way to where they are that they don't feel. It's not that they don't feel. It's that they don't have the physical hardware in the brain anymore to have the capacity to comprehend. Like people often in romantic arguments, they'll say like, just see it from my side. Just see it from my side. We here on the ground floor in normal people land, we're looking at these Fortune 500 CEOs and we're saying, how could you implement such policies that destroy the environment so egregiously? And then when some activist group figures it out, they spend billions of dollars on a cover-up. How could you do these things? They don't fucking care. Because they're so atrophied in the amygdala region, the temporoparietal junction, the anterior cingulate cortex. There's about 7 major regions of the brain that I describe in my book in detail that conveniently can be modulated by specific meditation practices. We call them neuroplastic workouts, just to make it separation, because most meditation doesn't do this. Most forms of meditation that people practice have zero neuroplastic effect. They will reduce your cortisol levels. They will, chill you out. But in terms of targeting specific regions of the brain for growth, these specific regions that, when small or dysfunctional, give you anxiety, depression, PTSD, addiction, right? It's just like it's clear. It's like these guys have been, and women, these executives have been so traumatized over the course of their business life, and then told it wasn't personal, it's just business, telling themselves this false narrative, even though they know that something is wrong. And it's just undiagnosed, untreated PTSD. It's as simple as that. And, maybe it's a little more complicated. Yeah. But my hypothesis is that if we were to introduce this narrative into the cultural zeitgeist, and these 500 people pursued neuroplastic training to grow these regions of the brain, then they would make completely different choices in their companies. And, I'm not going to save the world because I'm just a guy that, did some research and like does this little breathing thing. And like, I don't control $1 billion budget. I don't employ millions of people, but they do. You change one brain of one of these 500 companies.
Big domino.
Big dominoes. Big dominoes. And that I think is how we begin the new era of compassionate leadership.
We all know that Instagram is the new business card. It is your portal to the world, and it is the world's portal to you. The way things are going, if you're not online, you're going to be left behind over the next few years. So whether it's for networking, your business, or even relationships, your Instagram says everything about how seriously you're taking yourself and your work. It's where you invite people into your world. If you're a modern creator and you're looking to grow and scale your personal brand, you want to get paid more to be yourself and offer your unique value. You want to connect with other like-minded creators and build something that you are deeply proud of. You've become fatigued of everyone offering magic solutions online, and you actually just want to focus on delivering your unique value and what actually works. You want to connect with real creators, real artists, and real entrepreneurs. That is exactly why I launched Modern Creator. We work on your unique positioning to make you one of one and a key person of influence in your specific niche. We optimize your socials to gain attention and then convert that attention into paying clients. And we focus on creating a value-driven brand that doesn't rely on pushy sales techniques. So it's for long-term creators playing long-term games. You are looking to grow with other creators and create a deep impact while scaling your income. Click the link in the description to find out more about how to join Modern Creator, or feel free to reach out to me on Instagram and I can give you more details about how to join.
People are tired. People are tired of psychopathic leadership. There's too much information. And the information war itself, right? Fake news, like intelligence agencies, like nobody knows what's real anymore. But we have so much information. We have so much information and nobody knows what's real. In the past, we had less information and we knew that some things were real. Yeah. Right? People were more peaceful.
Yeah.
Now we're just so stressed out because we have so much information. We have to sift through all of it. And part of the reason why there's so much information is because these people with atrophied amygdalas are trying to convince us of believing that they're not, doing the wrong thing when they themselves know that they're doing the wrong thing. It's just been years of being stuck in this spot.
So a huge thing from listening to that amazing, story and your hypothesis, separation. It seems that the running theme between all of this, even like the areas of the brain and the behaviors, how they're manifesting, is separation. What is the opposite of that?
Non-separation.
Non-separation.
And the Buddhists and yogis in the ancient scriptures, they talk about this non-separation. The yin and yang symbol, in fact, is the symbol of non-separation. But even itself, it has a boundary around the edge, it has a line down the middle. The dark spot has a white hole, right? The white spot has a dark hole, right? There's seemingly separation within the space. But what the reason why that line in the middle is curved is because it can be, the yin part can be completely dominating. The line can go all the way to that side. The yang part can be completely dominating and go to that spot, right? The line is constantly in motion. That's what's meant by the curve, right? And we want to see that separation because we have these dualistic minds. When you can, through this experience, it's impossible. Like there's clearly a separation between this glass and this water. Clearly. What are you talking about, non-separate? There's clearly a separation between you and I, this air in between us, the skin that's holding our bag of bones together. There's clearly a separation. What are you talking about, you crazy person? But if you breathe in this way for this amount of time, you're going to feel it. And that infiniteness, that infinite joy, that infinite compassion, that infinite feeling where you are everything. I am all is I. Like all these things that these crazy hippies are talking about. They're just trying to put words to this crazy thing that they felt. And if people could feel this, they would know it. They would know what non-separation is. I know. I'm not enlightened. I have not hit nirvana. I'm still very much got a long way to go on my path. But I have felt non-separation. And if ever I go too many days without feeling that non-separation, I sit myself down. Time block, 2 hours. No coffee, no drinks, no anything, no noises, right? No music, no hi-hats, no kick drums. And I experience that non-separation. And the side benefit is I come out of it with incredible creative energy and I make something that manages to sustain my life. But that's just even that. We talk about creative energy, we talk about intellectual powerhouse, we talk about 5 times more productivity. Even that It's like, whatever, side benefits.
Yeah.
Right? Because this benefit, this amazing feeling of non-separation makes you capable of superhuman compassion. It makes you capable of superhuman peace of mind. And that was Buddha's game, right? It's like, money, sex, power, you can have all that. Have it. I got peace of mind. I'm chilling, bro.
Yeah.
I'm chilling. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. But now we've gotten to a point where the people that are governed by what Buddha said were the three fundamental sufferings, greed, anger, and ignorance. We've gotten to the point where the technology is so great that a single greedy person can mess up my life experience.
Yeah.
A single angry person can mess up my life experience. A single ignorant experience can actually intrude on my day-to-day experience of life. Even hiding out here on this beautiful island, right? The plastic trash mountain, right? The gasoline that's just like floating on the water between all the Indonesian islands, right? Like, it's just like, come on, leave me alone. Leave me alone. I figured out how to be happy. Leave me alone, right? It doesn't work anymore. And so now the Buddhists and the yogis that, their pursuit is ultimately selfish. I would say that my pursuit was my selfish desire for peace of mind. But now we have to activate.
Yeah.
Now we have to activate because the world run by greed, anger, and ignorance has just become too powerful. And unless we treat this mental illness, we're all lost. And it's thankfully there's a convenient solution. It's not Xanax.
No,
it's not Xanax. It's not ayahuasca.
Yeah.
Right. It's not mushrooms. It's not acid. It's not these like week-long transformational retreats. No, it's you repeat this habit. You develop this habit by repeating this particular exercise every day for a certain number of days, for a certain amount of minutes, right? And what the science has shown, and what this, the sort of the design, how we've engineered this sonic acupuncture program is
Sonic acupuncture.
Sonic acupuncture.
Oh, man, that's
Because
awesome.
the book is called Don't Punk Out.
Yeah.
So acupuncture.
Nice.
We're inducing flow states using sound waves. Right, like a musical key. Every musical key has a particular emotional quality to it.
Yes.
Right, and so the tracks that we've engineered for this guided meditation album, each song, so like the 8 Pillars of Joy track, is in a joyful, determined key, G major, right?
Beautiful.
Right? And the track that's dealing with the 6 anxieties is A minor, right? Loneliness, morose, right? Sadness, right? And it just on that, the just emotional key structure, like the pattern of chord progressions, we get you to feel a certain emotion.
Yes.
And then layered on top of that are, what they call the solfeggio frequencies. These solfeggio is the term that they used with these Christian Gnostic monks, when they were constructing the first big organs, right? People would go to Sunday school and you would sit there and you'd be listening to the music, specific chord progressions.
Yeah.
We're not just hanging out, right?
Yeah.
These ancient mystics figured out that when you get the vibrations big enough and you're going into this room and you're sitting there having the assault of these vibrations and these specific patterns, it induces a flow state.
Yes.
Right? So we induce the flow state with these frequencies underneath the song, right? The song is written in this musical key that pushes you into this emotional state. The drums come in to guide the specific yoga pranayama, right? So this breathing pattern that we did at the beginning. Right? Exhale. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Inhale, right? And then over the top of that, there's the lyrics, which are simply the mantra. The joy of changing my perspective, the joy of changing my perspective, the joy of changing my perspective, the joy of humility, the joy of humility, the joy of humility, right? And, all of these things taken together, all you have to do is listen to this track and breathe along to it. We really try to remove all the friction possible. You don't have to, be in a yoga ashram in Bali, right? You can be sitting on an airplane, listening to the track and breathing along with the drums, and you'll get the neuroplastic benefit, right? All it takes, right? 10 minutes a day for 40 days. And you can, with Professor Richard Davidson from the University of Madison, Wisconsin, right? Like the hero of Don't Punk Out, right? He's it was his watching his lecture is the one that set me on this path. I saw his lecture on YouTube in 2013, and I was like, no way. No fucking, really? Right? They used basically fMRI scans and like all this technology that they were using to study traumatic brain injuries. And he had the idea, like, yeah, let's study, rather than just extremely negative behavioral qualities that might be governed by neurological dysfunction, let's study extremely positive human qualities. And if there's any neurological basis for these extremely positive qualities, right? So he scanned the brains of these yogis and Buddhists and found that they have 5 times larger amygdalas than normal people. Not larger, but like denser, same size, but more neurons. So like much denser. They had much denser temporal-parietal junctions. Temporal-parietal junction is implicated in the mind's ability to visualize what the physical body looks like outside of itself. Right? And when you hyper-develop the temporal-parietal junction, the metaphysical body can see what it looks like outside of itself. You never see things from my perspective. It's because they have an atrophied temporal-parietal junction. The main atrophy point in ADHD kids and neurodivergence is the anterior cingulate cortex. This is the part of the brain that is responsible for delayed gratification. It's like, if I do this thing that I don't like, I'm going to get this positive benefit down the road. People that work out have larger anterior cingulate cortices than people that don't work out. This is just like neuroscience. Right? I'm not talking about like life philosophy. I'm not talking about diet. I'm just talking about people that do things that they don't want to do in the interest of having a better life because they've been convinced that that is true. They have larger anterior cingulate cortices. Right? And these, and so I kind of feel like I'm going on a tangent, but yeah, like bring us back somewhere.
This is like exercise. Well, it is exercise.
It is exercise.
It's exercise. Just as you can train your muscles, you can grow certain parts of your mind through this exercise.
And for a vocabulary point, I make it a big point about this is the brain.
Yes.
The brain is the hardware.
Okay.
Your beliefs are the software. The mind is the firmware.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
The mind is like the connection between the brain and your beliefs.
Yes.
Right. And so like I feel like so much of psychology work is about belief systems. So much of religion is like, I believe in this thing and you believe in that thing. That's why we're different. Right. The quality of our beliefs changes. We're not like-minded people. Right. But by bringing it down to the brain level, we're all humans. We all have a brain. All of our brains have the same parts.
And this is a hardware upgrade.
This is a hardware upgrade that changes your mind, which then manifests in different beliefs. I'm not convincing you to believe anything different.
Yeah.
In fact, every single spiritual practice around the world, through thousands of years of experimentation, has come to some sort of solo contemplative practice. The yogis have their meditation. The Chinese Taoists have their form of qigong and meditation. The Sufi Brotherhood and the mystics in the Islamic religion have their form of solo contemplation. The Christians have prayer. The Jewish religion has prayer as well. And it's like the voodoos, right? The shamans, right? Everybody has figured out, if I sit by myself and I think about this thing long enough, I'll be a better person. I'll be a holy person. Right now, what Professor Davidson and his team have figured out is that here's the parts list.
Yeah.
Right. That supports this thing that everyone has been talking about.
Yeah.
These extremely positive human qualities: compassion, peace of mind. Like what's the opposite of greed, anger, and ignorance? Is generosity, compassion, wisdom.
Amazing, man.
Right.
So, 2 points, and then I want to ask about music, and I want to ask about the role that you said you've come back to music, you've come back to your artistry. First off, with the separation, one of my favorite ideas to think about if you are feeling separate, try and go for a walk without the path. You start to realize that you're connected to everything around. Can't go for a walk without the path. The path can't be there without the forest, and you start to realize that your concept of, I'm going for a walk, can't exist without all of the things that are part of you. Secondly, have you read the Moses Code?
I haven't, but it sounds like something I would like.
You would absolutely dive headfirst into this. So basically what they've done, I'm not going to remember the names, but they've taken ancient Hebrew and the word God in Hebrew, they've managed to translate that to kind of the musical frequencies of the sound of God. So they've managed to recreate the sound of God from ancient Hebrew, which I think is very much in line
absolutely
with what you're doing. So that's something that I'm still diving into and even trying to wrap my head around. But there's meditation.
So they've measured the hertz.
And they're producing the frequency of God based on.
There you go.
Yeah,
that's probably it is probably that work that led to what they're calling the Silvestrio frequencies. Yeah,
that's the ancestor.
Yeah. But I mean, no. This the musical frequencies of the word God.
Yes,
I think led to the chord progressions in the organs.
Yes,
right.
Yes,
it led like the sound bowls. Everyone in Bali loves a good sound healing.
Oh, they do.
Right. The diameter of those bowls was experimented with over thousands of years.
Yes.
If the bowl was too big, it doesn't quite feel that good.
Yes.
If the bowl's too small, it doesn't quite feel like. But the bowl's just right. Same thing with the Chinese. Same thing with the Chinese gongs.
Yes.
Right. The gongs. Like, you can't have just like a randomly sized gong. It has to be a specific diameter, so that when you hit it, boom, 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 right? And then you have another one that's specifically sized, right? So I really believe that what they're talking about in the Moses Code, and granted, I'm going to read this book because this is exactly the line that I'm working in now. What started out as just me doing a bunch of breathing exercises has actually turned into the recognition, the insight that the best meditations I had were by myself while listening to a guided meditation song. Not a spoken word guided meditation, but there were some Kundalini yogis that made some beautiful, beautiful songs. Like one of them is Sanatam Kaur. She's still alive. She's still touring. Hope to meet her one day. But her voice carried me through some of the darkest times of my life. Right, just because I was able to let go of the rote it's tough to sit there for 11 minutes in a room by yourself, just in perfect meditation pose. It's tough, right? But you throw this song on the speaker, and the frequencies and the voice and it's just it just carries you into such a magical place. And I do believe that music today, pop music, rap music, EDM, whatever, it's been reduced to entertainment.
Yes.
We hear it and it still feels good, right? It feels good, but I really think that music is medicinal. The original design, or rather, the original intention of music was to be medicinal, right? And now we just do it while we pop in mollies.
Well, this is why people. So there's a few memes that float around, and there's truth in them, but maybe they're not always pieced together. But I think what the work you're doing really pieces a lot of these things together. So I'll throw out a couple of things and ask you about your relationship with music moving forward. So one meme: music is the answer. You hear this all of the time. Music is the answer.
Yeah.
There's always a ringing truth to that.
Yeah.
Now we'll dive into maybe why frequencies and all of this, why that maybe proves that true.
Yeah.
John Lennon said that, everyone is a musician, but it's only those who are brave enough to kind of pursue it, who, it's something along those lines.
I believe that one, for sure.
So it's this idea of music kind of aligning us with something special, our truest nature, perhaps. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, both ended up Christians, but also deep study of the occult, and you can see that in their work. Like you look at their work, you're like, right.
yeah, absolutely.
Tolkien's Middle Earth that he created was created, his whole theology behind it, the angels or whatever they were called, Valar, I think he called them, they sung Middle Earth into creation. They sung it into creation. It was a harmony. It was a song. Evil came into that world because it was discordant. So there was a Valar or an angel or whatever who sung in disharmony with the song of the rest of the angels, whatever you want to call it. That's what brought the disharmony, the disease, into that world. And hardened it. So we started with our vibrations that we were putting out, the create sound of creation. Okay, for me, that kind of all fits in. This music is the answer, that we're all musicians at heart. We're all aligning, with vibrations, essentially. We kind of inherently know that we're vibrations. We say, you've got a good vibe, you've got a bad vibe.
Yeah.
So how has you've gone from kind of this hardened world, this traumatic world of startups, Silicon Valley, all of this. Now you're kind of returning to sort of artistry, to expression through music. How has that been? What's that looking like? How do you feel?
I feel great. I feel amazing. And if ever I don't feel great now, I pump out a track, and it's like, there was when I started learning music production, I mean, like literally like learning the tool of the DAW, right? The digital audio workstation.
What do you want, Ableton or Logic?
I have Ableton, but I have actually done a lot of work to have my workflow completely on the phone.
Cool.
Yeah, and so everything except the most intense final stages of mixing and mastering, I can do on my phone.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that means I can do it anywhere.
Yeah.
I can do it in the taxi on the way from Ubud to Canggu.
Yeah.
I can do it while sitting in a doctor's office. I can do it anywhere. And I think a lot of that work and that research was fueled by my computer PTSD. The fact that I spent the first 10 years of my career just like software, emails, productivity, keyboard shortcuts, and so I just didn't want to be on my computer, but yeah, it's amazing what these app developers have done is that and of course the hardware of these phones is so powerful that the plugins that you can get on your computer for Ableton that cost $100, $200 some cases, they're so expensive that people just pirate them, right? Like you can get it on the App Store for $10. Same studio quality professional EQ, same studio quality compressor, $8.99. Instead of $100, right? So for me, it was like partially an engineering challenge to be on the phone workflow, but we're getting off topic. You're saying the move from tech into music. Yeah, I feel great, and like in my like as I was watching YouTube videos and looking for like producer mentors, one of the big I guess like producers that has a lot of educational content out there is Timbaland. And Timbaland says this phrase pretty often in his interviews where he talks about like he had this dip in his career where he believed at some point like he had all the hits. He had Justin Timberlake, he had Missy Elliott, he had all this stuff going on. And he just got to this point where he believed that he was bigger than the music, that it was Timbo's beat. Like Timbo's beat would drive music. And then some younger producers came up and just like took his throne, and he was like, "Oh, what? What?" Right? And somewhere in that interview, he always talks about how like when he was just starting out, he, was broke. This like kid from black kid from Virginia. Like didn't have anything going on, but because he had this music, he felt rich. Like he could throw down a beat, get a room dancing. And that's wealth, right? There's earlier we were talking about kind of financial freedom is a lie because you can go in golden handcuffs, right? But like if you can just like from your voice make someone feel, there's this poet Anais Nin. She says that there are few things that can F the ineffable, like the human spirit lifted in song. the first cry of a child. And there's a kind of a list. I can't remember all of them, but like that, the human spirit lifted in song and effing the ineffable. It's like something that I always come down to with respect to my relationship with music, is that I used to, when I was in that, excuse me, in that hunger phase, in that achievement, tech, money, VCs, raise, big dollar amount. There were times when you feel inadequate, when you feel like, my friend is like raising more money than me. My friend has a better operating company than me, like this thing and that thing. And it's just like very difficult to find solace in any aspect of that work. But in music, you know, you just 1 5 6 1, simple chord progression. You're just like, oh, you know, 1 3 5 6. You're like, oh, you know, it's just like the patterns are there, you know, and you just play them and you feel great. And so I think that the avenue toward self-soothing is a lot easier with a little bit of basic music theory knowledge.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah.
Right? Like self-soothing, you know, that's fundamentally, that's it. Right. Yeah. And I think the reason why music is the answer is so resonates so strongly. I mean, it's even in the language.
Yeah.
Resonates.
It resonates.
Right? Is that when people are sad, they listen to sad songs. And if the song is well constructed, then the feeling is like, I'm not alone. I had this thought while on a mushroom trip in college, and I was listening to music with some friends that, and at this point I had not studied music production whatsoever. When I was a child, I, like a good son of a Chinese tiger mom, played the violin, and I was shredding on the violin. Like I was in the Youth Philharmonic Orchestra, you know, first stand, just like, you know, doing the whole thing, practicing, you know, enjoying it. But that I stopped playing the violin when I was 15. You know, I still haven't touched my violin, even in my music days. It's like, I'm kind of scared, you know, because it's like, there is so much manual dexterity that is required, you know, like the calluses in the fingers, like the positioning of the wrists, you know, that I'm just like kind of intimidated about getting back into it. But in college, listening to some music while in one of the, and that's what mushrooms and acid do, is they put you into these highly malleable neuroplastic states. They open the mind's channels. You know, I like to talk about the analogy, like the mind is an ocean of activity. And in the ocean, there are discrete currents, grooves, that where the water moves faster than in other places of the water. You know, you see this in the movie Finding Nemo, right? When they're like surfing with the turtles, you know, in the currents, right? What psychedelics do in proper dosages is it makes everything in your brain a current. So you can take a highway from like all these different ideas that were never connected, but you can see all the ideas connecting. And I was listening to music and I was like, wow, what must have been like for this musician to make this song in order to induce this feeling in me? And then I just, you know, very naively started thinking about the musical process. And I was like, you know, I bet you know, artists are kind of like perfectionistic people, you know, and they probably had this idea. They probably had this emotion and they wanted to communicate this idea. And being a perfectionist, they wouldn't release it until the idea was properly communicated, until when they listen it back into their headphones or play it back to themselves on the monitors, that it makes them feel externally the thing that they felt before they even sat down to play it. Right, and you don't release the song until it hits that. That's what we call making it slap.
Yes,
right?
Making it slap is the technical term. Yeah,
like, you know, if it doesn't slap, like, you know, like I made a song and I showed it. I played it for my wife like a couple weeks ago, and I put the headphones on. I was like really excited about it, and like I just arranged it, and I put the headphones on her, and I'm watching the track play. And I'm watching her like physical body, and the drop comes, and there's no movement, And I'm just like, fuck.
Yeah.
Fuck. And I was like, give me the headphones. And she's like, no, I'm listening. I was like, give me the headphones. And she's like, why'd you take the headphones? It doesn't slap.
It doesn't slap.
And she's like, no, I think it's got a lot of potential. This is being a lovely, supportive,
Yeah.
lovely, supportive partner. And I'm just like, baby, like when the song slaps, you can't help but bob. You can't help but bob your head. You can't help but move your shoulders. You can't help but get in the groove, right? And that only just confirmed the thing that I naively thought in this university time mushroom trip was like, man, the thing that they're imagining, this emotion that they're trying to manifest through the software into a processing chain that then comes out of my speakers through this MP3 file and makes me feel this way, right? Like, there's got to be some part of the brain. And at the time, I was helping my ex-girlfriend study for the MCATs, right? And so I had some like very basic, brain function structure knowledge just by like, doing flashcards with her. That, the auditory information or audio information goes in through the ear. We have these like 3 little bones that vibrate. It goes into the ear canal, straight into the temporal lobe. The temporal lobe is like the kind of the part of the brain that's the lowest part that kind of holds the lizard brain and like what people kind of colloquially refer to as like the oldest part of the brain. But and I didn't know enough, but I hypothesized at that moment. I was like, there must be a part of the brain that gets stimulated when the ear bones vibrate and the ear canal and sound waves travel into the ear canal. It hits this part of the brain to create satisfaction. And this musician that made this song, that wanted it to sound like this, and me hearing that song and it's sounding like this and feeling that satisfaction, like that part of our brains must be the same shape.
So this
must be the same size. And that is on like a neurological level why you don't feel alone.
Yes.
Why, when you're feeling brokenhearted, when you're feeling triumphant, when you're feeling like you got to get ready for the big game, when you're feeling like, like I don't believe in life after love. Share it, make it slap. Right? And like there are just songs that like that like levels. Like what is that song even about? Like, but every time you play that song,
it slaps.
It's like the whole room, multi-generationally, like the kids are bumping, the old people are bumping, right? And it's just like this part of the brain is stimulated in this particular way.
So there's this idea of
non-separation. Yeah.
Sometimes you have an idea, sometimes an idea gets a hold of you. I believe that, and what you very much described there was an artist gets a feeling, they get that idea, then they need to realize that into their music, and there's that gap in between until, like you said, they know when they hit it. And they've captured that feeling, that idea, whatever it was, they've now hardened it into a bit of kind of data, I guess, if it's like a digital file that you can access at any time and you can experience that emotion, that feeling. The magic with music, I believe, so Albert Einstein says, imagination is the preview of life's coming attractions. Now, if I watch it's a good one. You talk about manifestation, whatever. You talk about creation. You talk about vibrations. You talk about music is a medium in which, yes, it stimulates your brain through vibrations. You can close your eyes when you listen to music, and you can see things that you've never seen before.
Oh, yes. Yes.
You can see things that you've never seen before.
Yes.
So you want to talk about manifestation, you want to talk about creation, you want to talk about changing the world. Music is the answer, man.
Music is the answer. Music is the answer, literally. Just to riff on that. I mean, so I wrote this book. I sat down and started writing it in July 22, and I was done with the first manuscript end of September 2022. Just like literally like shut myself off from the internet, went to my mom's house, like stayed in my high school bedroom and just like. Granted, it was too long, and like we're editing it, and it's like like dealing with the publisher. So it's like great to work with a publisher, and it's great to have an editor, but ultimately, you know, if I self-published this like 486 page like scientific literature review, you know, maybe people wouldn't enjoy it, right? Because it's just a little nerdy. But ultimately, I emerged from my shell in October, and I was in Miami, and I had a meeting with one of my mentors. This guy is Jay Van Sharp. He runs this basically like a culture consultancy. There was an article, like a full page, like full magazine long for like he was on the cover and like da da da. And they call his consulting firm the McKinsey of cool. Right, and it's just like he is just the coolest guy. Right,
Nice.
It's like, you know, like heterosexual black guy that wears black nail polish and just like has read all the mythologies and knows all the philosophies, and just like no matter who you are and where you're from, like what socioeconomic level, what country, like he can converse, right? And not just like small talk. Like I have seen this man get people into the most sensitive conversations in just like 10 seconds. And like people that would normally not, right? People that would normally, in environments that you would normally not, right? And so like he just has this ability to, and one of his mantras is culture is data. Culture is data. It's not just a thing we do. It's a thing we have done. And we have done it for so long for so many reasons, right? And so I showed him like very, very proudly, you know, like Jay, I wrote a book, you know? And he's like, all right, yeah, that makes sense for you. I was just like, this is the cover. And he's just like, it's a good looking cover. It's a good looking cover. He's like, you wrote it yourself? And I was like, yeah. I mean, I referenced a lot of science, but I wrote it. And he was like, it's cool. What's it about? And I'm telling him this whole thing about like business PTSD and like it's not personal, it's just business, and the world's run by psychopaths, and we got to save the world, man. And he's like, just you're hitting me with too much information. I'm bored. And I was like, Jay, this is the most I think I've stumbled upon like the most important glitch in societal construct. And he's like, you always had the energy, kid. But let me tell you something. You might have the most important message in the universe, but if it doesn't slap, nobody's listening. And I was just like, what? And he's like, so does it slap? I was like, Jay, it's a book. Books don't slap. And he's like, he like took off his sunglasses. He's like, the Bible slaps. You're telling me you read any page in the Bible, every page in the Bible slaps. All right? It is the bestseller of all because it slaps, right? The Quran slaps. The Tao Te Ching slaps. Right? Does your book slap? And I'm just sitting there, we're like, in Wynwood, you know, I'm just like sitting outside at Panther Coffee Shop, and I'm just like, fuck, man. I don't think it does. And then he's just like, all right, figure out how to make it slap. We'll talk again. And then we just spent the rest of the day talking, you know, doing other stuff, you know, hanging out. But that really bothered me. And so from October, you know, November went by, and I was like editing the book, and then December went by, and I was like editing the book, and I was just like, it was Christmas Eve, 2022, that I was like, I connected the dots between what he said about making it slap, what my experience was in terms of my meditation with those guided meditation songs, and how they didn't slap, they weren't hard-hitting bangers, but the human spirit lifted in song, right? Like the fact that Sanatam's voice was able to get me into the place where I was able to actually do these 22-minute meditations every day. Without getting bored, without getting distracted, with like the sound waves just like were a container for me to get into it, to stay focused in it. And that's when I realized that, like, you know, all this neuroscience, all this convincing, all this, you know, connect all the dots. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about the dots, right? Because you can connect all the dots, but still no one's going to sit down for 10 minutes a day for 40 days and do this thing. right? People know that smoking gives you cancer. They don't stop smoking. People know that drinking will shorten your nervous system to the point that you have shakes, but they still don't stop drinking. Because smoking slaps.
Yeah.
People like to smoke.
Yeah.
It's a social thing. People, friendship slaps, right?
Yeah.
Right? And like reducing everything down to, you know, this attention, or like how do you grab someone's attention and make it worthwhile? As it's like it all came together on Christmas Eve, and I opened up GarageBand on my phone, and I was like, what do I do? You know? And I started watching some YouTube tutorials, and yeah, I just like every day I just decided I was like, you know, there's this beautiful interview of Ira Glass, the guy, the creator of This American Life, one of the most biggest podcasts, you know, he's won a bunch of Emmys, and he has this interview that I watched completely unrelated to this endeavor with music, but he talks about creative work, and the reason why people get into creative work is because you have taste. Right? Like you hear music, you read poetry, you read a novel, you hear a radio show, you hear a podcast, right? And you're like, you know, I could do this. I could do this, and I think I could do it a little better. You know, maybe not better, but I could do it with my flavor. I could express myself through this medium, right? And that taste, which is killer, right, is not matched by your current skill set because you don't know the tools. Right? And he talks about in this interview, he says, yeah, quote, he's like, a thing that successful creatives don't often talk about, that we need to talk about more, is this valley, right? Where you have this like incredible inspiration at the beginning of your journey to like learn the tool and learn the craft and do this thing, but you're just continuously disappointed because the things that you're producing are not matching the thing that you're feeling. You're not communicating well. And what happens to a kid when they are continuously met by this inability to communicate? They become a quiet kid. Like, what's the point of me talking? The adults don't understand, right? Thus, the root cause of all teenage angst, right? You just don't know how to communicate, so nobody wants to listen to you, right? And artists deal with this on a much more extreme level. Because you have gone through school, you do know how to read and write, you have some level of emotional maturity. Maybe you're successful, like, you know, like I, you know, am a highly trained, you know, XYZ, right? Like material scientist, electrical engineer, you know, cybersecurity consultant, whatever, you know, and like here I am, like, just like making garbage. Like I don't even want to show anybody. Because it sounds so bad, but I know that this is how I accomplish this mission. And but anyway, he said that the only way to get through this period where your skill level with the tool doesn't match your taste is repetition. Is put yourself on a schedule, whatever the medium will allow, whether it's, you know, one short story a day, one short, you know, news article a week. You know, in my case, I decided I would make one song a day. And I wouldn't, you know, go to like full mastering and production, but I would just lay some tracks down. Like I would make a loop, make some loop variations, arrange it into, you know, intro, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, post-chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus. You know, like just like understanding the structure, right, of a song, understanding the structure of a loop, understanding what makes a loop satisfying, how to create variation, you know, like all these things that I didn't know the first time that I opened GarageBand on my phone. But I set myself on this schedule. It's like every day I'm going to sit down for as long as it takes. I'm going to make a song. And it's going to be shit. And it took me like, I think a week before I made something that I thought, like, oh, I could show somebody this. And I showed it to them, and they were like, maybe you need to put an 808 in there. And I was like, there is an 808 in there. They're like, you didn't put it in right. Right? And I was like, no, change the hat, right? Yeah. But having an accountability system, right? Putting yourself on a schedule and having an accountability system. It doesn't mean like, you know, go bother all your friends and family. Like for me as a musician, right? Like I just made a SoundCloud account. Yeah. And it's like, you know, not every day I would post a track, but like every day I would make a song. And then of that week, I would pick like which one I thought was the least crappy, and I'd put it on SoundCloud. And I just kept doing that. doing that. We're at the beginning of 2024 now. So basically I am 14 months into my music production career. I have 45,000 plays on SoundCloud.
Amazing.
They were all shit,
Yeah.
right? Compared to the things that I'm making now, all those tracks are shit, right? In terms of the quality, in terms of my knowledge of how to use the plugins to achieve certain sounds, in terms of my knowledge of musical arrangements and like which ones actually work and which ones don't. But by forcing myself, first of all, I had to believe. I believed Ira Glass. I believed that he was correct, that I just needed to, like, with no ego, show people my music in a public forum and just keep going. And whenever someone says like, oh, this isn't good, it's like, cool, get back in the studio. There's this interview of the rapper 21 Savage. It's like a little like, viral meme thing. And he's like, man, why are you so upset that people don't like your music? Get back in the studio and make some shit people want to listen to. I think he might have said, don't be a bitch too. But like, the point is that, people get so wrapped up in like, this thing that I'm making has to be great. This thing that I'm making is my heart and soul. And how dare you not like it? You don't love me. It's not about that.
Yeah.
It's not about that. It's that you don't know how to use the software yet. So just keep putting out, keep finishing. Even if it's not finished. Art is never finished. It's only published.
Yes.
Right? Like these tracks that I made for the Don't Punk Out, like the book official soundtrack, I made them all in March, April. And I'm still playing. I'm playing them at every music festival that I perform at while I'm like live leading the breathing sessions. And those are not the tracks that are going to go on the official album release. I have the stems, I have the raw MIDIs, and I will remake them for the album now that I have so much more knowledge under my belt. But, like March 2023, from December 24th, 2022 to March 2023 is what? January, February. So 3 months in, I made these tracks that have now, been performed for total over like all the workshops, all the music festivals, teaching every day at Burning Man. Over 1,000 people have experienced this set, and 32% of them cried. Like deep emotional traumatic releases, not because the music was dope, but because the music was just the most elementary container to keep them focused for the breathing. And after my workshops, every single time someone comes up and they're just like, yo, man, I've been doing breath work for years. I never had an experience like this. I've been meditating for years. Never had an experience like this. I love going to sound healings. Why was this different? And it was because all the elements arranged according to what the neuroscience prescribed. And, I'm not reinventing the wheel at all, but I do believe that I am scratching the surface on the history of using music as medicine. And I'm really excited to join all the other musicians that are in this wavelength, because there are some. Tonight, for example, in Bali, or in Ubud, in Yoga Barn, Aware, this band, this is two guys, extremely skilled in using music as medicine. Yeah. And, I'm going to the concert and like, I'm really looking to experience their art, but it's like, it's just like seeing other people that have been on this tip for a while and me that kind of came into it from the science element and from just like, I just got to get it out there. It's like, it's wonderful to find a community that is really pushing this. And, I think there's going to be, I think we're at the beginning of a wave. The beginning of a wave where music is elevated out of trashy entertainment and into like rigorous healing modalities.
Charles, this is slapped. This is absolutely slapped. I'm devastated that we're going to have to leave it here. I'm devastated, but I'm also excited because I know that the conversation continues.
Indeed.
And I know that all of this you've put out is going to have ignited so many sparks of thoughts, of curiosity. I love how you approach all of these topics and the dots that you have joined, I think it's completely unique. I think it's fascinating.
Thank you for asking the right questions. It's the most beautiful interviewing, amazingly generative, like directional but expansive.
I just want to hear your genius, man. Honestly, like it's fantastic, and I'm so excited to, stay in your world as well and kind of absorb all of these vibrations. How can people get into your world? How can people start thinking like you're thinking? How can they start experiencing what you're experiencing? What can you point them towards?
Yeah, well, so the book is not available on Amazon yet, but the website, the pre-order website is up. It's at don'tpunkoutbook.com. And I guess we'll have the link in the description. But the organization that is formed around this training is called the BayWa, which stands for the Big Amygdala Energy World Alliance.
Nice, Big Amygdala
Big
Energy.
Amygdala Energy. Because you don't want to have a tiny amygdala disorder. Yeah. It's just a problem. And nobody likes you. If you have a tiny amygdala, it's like the shirts that we made for the book, like the merch. It says "Show me your amygdala, size matters." Right, it's just like we're really going for it, just like the comedic element, but also the rigorous, serious element. And so the organization BayWa is offering trainings. We have the first live online training that we're launching on January 8th, and we will continue to do trainings over the course of the year, thematic, to specific things, right? Because we have an anxiety vector, we have a depression vector, PTSD vector, addiction, and these different audiences. I'm continuously surprised about the types of people that are coming to us asking for the same thing that we're offering generically at the music festival, but like specific towards like corporate HR teams, right? Where like you have these like all hands meetings, and you want to have a one-day workshop where you get the employees all in a flow state so that they can do something like that, or the neurodivergent community, which I am a part of as an ADHD kid that has managed to heal or reduce a lot of my symptoms. The addiction community, which I was, I don't like to say it, but I was very heavily into drugs for many years because I was sad. I was just escaping into alcohol, escaping into parties, going into the bathroom at Soho House. It's just a degenerative life. But through this practice, I've been able to completely rebalance, right? And so, yes, don'tpunkoutbook.com, BayWa.org. It's BAEWA. We got a YouTube channel. We're on SoundCloud.
Beautiful.
And the album will be released on Spotify.
Can't wait.
So we're just going to be out there, multimedia situation, but all of it in the interest of growing the neurons in your brain so that you can be a happier, healthier person. Thank you so much thank you for having me. It was a beautiful conversation.
Appreciate it. Man, it was awesome.
Sat Nam.
Quick one from me, guys. If you are a modern creator looking to grow and scale your personal brand, you like the way I think and solve problems, you're looking to dial in your brand, positioning, and leverage authentic, no BS marketing that is aligned with your brand's vision and mission, and you're interested in working together more closely, please feel free to reach out on IG and we can discuss just that. Back to the episode.